Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Mid-South Wrestling Review Series, this time for the 13th of February, 1982. We open with the newly crowned Mid-South Tag Team Champions, the Wild Samoans, Afa and Sika, versus Rick Ferrara and Bill Ash. Sika and Afa, of course, with their new manager, General Skandar Akbar. They do a 10-minute recap of the winning of the championships the previous week, which, if you want that, you can go and listen to the last episode of this particular YouTube offering. And I've put them, most of them, in a nifty playlist for you. Eventually going to have every territory possible. But anyway, clotheslines and chokeouts by the Samoans. They're not afraid to cheat. Back elbows. Samoans, in this particular match, it's meant to be a highlight. Not necessarily a fan of having champions do squash matches like this, but I understand the reason behind it, especially when you're transferring them to a new manager and you're transferring kind of stories into the Samoans being back on top with a new manager and kind of a new, not necessarily look, but a new coat of paint, so to speak. Duck out of the way by one of the enhancements. Ferrara comes in and tries to brawl a bit. Samoan drop and a 1-2-3 for the tag team champions, as is to be expected. It's interesting. These reviews tend to run a little longer, 12 to 15 minutes, and I think it's because in 42, on average, minutes of wrestling in a Mid-South program, there's more to cover. There's more action. It's more meaningful. And I actually think if you took a Mid-South program, you'd probably get more wrestling in it than at least two of the three WWE programs in a week. And that just, to me, is really sad that the business in 30, almost 40 years has changed so dramatically in such a negative way. Really good match up next as we see Paul Orndorff and B. Brian Blair. Blair and Orndorff actually continue their feud in the WWF in the years to come. But here, some ride time by Blair, rolls over, even with a three-quarter roll cradle. Orndorff, who is still aligned with Bob Roop, is kind of going through the motions, gets a drop toe hold, continues to be towards the top of the contender ranking for Ted DiBiase's North American Championship. Again, a O'Connor roll by Blair for a near fall. Match worth going out of your way to see. If you are interested in how to work a mid-card to upper mid-card match, do it properly and kind of work holds and work a more traditional style. Again, attempted sunset flip. This time, Orndorff sits down with it, and he is frustrated and flustered, flubberated, my word, that he cannot get the victory there. Bow and arrow tie-up attempted by Blair, gets a little bit on it, and gets a three-quarter cradle, but Orndorff makes his way into the ropes. Interesting that Orndorff, probably, I would say, close to the top heel in the territory at the time, but is making Blair look like he belongs as one of the top baby faces in this match. And he's doing it in, let's say, definitely less than 15 minutes. So proof that, again, proper structuring of a match, you don't need, 17 false finishes and, a lot of overt moves. You just need to tell a story right. And a sunset flip out of the corner, near fall by Blair, and they now go to brawling, which obviously Orndorff comes out a little bit ahead on. They actually lose the match a little bit. Interesting. It looks like he was going for a clothesline or a maybe a drop kick there, and they go to the corner instead because somebody runs the wrong way. Orndorff sends Blair to the outside. They kind of fight a little bit on the outside. Orndorff brings it back in, 1-2, and gets a near fall there. And actually gets a victory there, believe it or not. It looked like a near fall because the referee hesitated on the count just a little bit, and Orndorff gets that off of a kind of double knee sort of situation to the head. We get Junkyard Dog and Bob Roop next, which that's a big kind of step up, I think, for Roop. That type of match, Roop has kind of been in a supporting role, sort of, to this point, and Junkyard Dog probably the top baby face in the territory. Blair probably third, maybe. That sounds about right. And gotta remember, I'm just getting my bearings on Mid South again, and so it's interesting to watch it with this critical eye as opposed to just watching for fun. I won't say I've watched the most wrestling in the world. That's probably reserved for a guy like Dave Meltzer who has no life outside of the wrestling business. But um, it's certainly. I've probably watched more North American wrestling than I would say 90% of the population over the years. I prefer the territory stuff. Anyway, Dog takes down and uses his power early against Roop, and Bob Roop is one of those guys that people speak really highly of, and this is my first time to watch him with a critical eye. I'm not that impressed, in all honesty. He's not bad, but he's not as good as I've heard people make him out to be. Full Nelson and controlling the Dog, sending him into the buckle for the first few minutes there, and Dog comes back again with power. Dog, again, probably the biggest babyface they have in the area at the time, hit the diving headbutt among other things, manages to continue kind of going through quite a bit here, and Roop comes back with a series of shots and some Irish whips and big shots to the midsection and a shot under the chin, punch under the chin. Roop goes to the outside to regain his composure a little bit. Notice this too, going to the outside is not an every week prognosis. It's not multiple times in a show. You might have 2 weeks in a row where guys don't go outside the ring at all, and then when somebody does, it's not for 27 spots, it's for 1 or 2 minutes, and then they get back in the ring because fighting is supposed to have, that's where it's supposed to happen. Both guys end up brawling here a bit, and that is to be expected. And Roop gets caught up in the ropes. He's all tangled up, and the Dog, being a babyface, backs off, gets a victory in a count-out sort of way there. Ref makes the stoppage, and that's how the Dog doesn't beat Bob Roop directly, but gets a victory anyway. We go to the next bit of the journey here, which in this case happens to be let's see, Wiskowski and Orton versus DiBiase and Mr. Olympia. Olympia, another guy who holds a regional championship in the area, and obviously being in there with Ted DiBiase, who is the biggest champion they have, Ed Wiskowski and Bobby Orton Jr. Interesting team, to say the very least, and Olympia and DiBiase, two champions. I believe Olympia is the Louisiana champion. I like state championships, actually. I think it would be cool if we had more states that still did them, even at the independent level. Olympia and Orton start off. Olympia out-wrestles Orton for the first few minutes. Orton tries a roll-up, doesn't get it, and then Olympia goes back to really some basic stuff, including fireman's carries, arm bars, and the like. Wiskowski comes in, and Olympia continues to clear house for the first little bit. They go back to the arm, or Olympia goes back to the arm on Orton. And it's just interesting that to think less than 2 years from now, Orton is with the WWF. DiBiase comes in, gets a little bit of an advantage, and then Orton cuts him off a little bit, and they go in that direction. Orton sends DiBiase into the ropes. DiBiase comes back with a vicious forearm and makes a tag to Olympia. Olympia seems to be highlighted in the match because DiBiase's main adversaries aren't in there. All four guys in the ring for a minute, and DiBiase is able to get a inside cradle for a 2 count. and then Wiskowski kind of takes the shot. Orton grabs a shot from the outside, and Wiskowski again takes over on DiBiase. All four guys into the ring. Chaos ensues. We see a drop kick that kind of hits the balance of power, and Wiskowski gets nailed by his own man here. Again, all four guys in the ring. Wiskowski taken out with the sleeper hold by Mr. Olympia. The referee, though, is with Orton and DiBiase over on the other side. Orton hits or attempts to hit a sit-down pile driver and gets set, and then DiBiase makes his way over, gets the 3 count on his opponent. We go to a standby match, Frank Monty and Ron Cheatham, and they only have a couple of minutes left. This is, again, slow down the tempo of the program now. You've had your main event match, your star match, so now you go to a standby match that gives guys, in theory, an opportunity to impress promoters on television, if we're living in a kayfabe world. In not theory, you're filling time because the match that was your main event did not manage to fill the whole television program, as is goofy on today's current wrestling. Hey, everything hits within a 2-hour program because we time matches out and it looks fake as all get out. It's stupid, and promoters that do it are foolish. Anyway, dropping the knee into the continuance by Monty, and he kind of, gets a 3/4 hold, kind of rolls him up, doesn't get all he wants on it, and we go without a finish to the close of the program. Yet again, Mid-South ends with an unfinished match, but that really doesn't matter because they are continuing to give, week by week, quality stuff. So, we'll be back with more right after this.